Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to cover something that seems to be confusing a lot of people. I got a lot of varied questions, confusions, things like that. In my video yesterday discussing my refeed after I make weight at my meet and then trying to maximize my performance. And I guess a lot of my subscribers are not athletes, have never competed in sports, that have weight classes and things. And powerlifting is not even close to being the most popular sport, or even in the top 5 that actually do this sort of stuff. So I'm kind of shocked that people are saying, well, I don't understand why powerlifters are doing this. It's wrestlers, boxers, MMA fighters. Those are probably the 3 most popular sports in which people do this. Those are big mainstream sports. They're not fringe stuff like powerlifting. And I'm surprised people aren't aware that a lot of athletes in these sports weigh in sometimes 20 or 30 pounds lighter than they actually compete at. And a lot of people, I guess they're not aware of that. That's pretty normal. And even in the powerlifting federations, to where some of them do 2-hour weigh-ins, there have been guys who have successfully lost 20 pounds, like in the IPF, with the 2-hour weigh-ins and come and set world records at meets. It has been done. So don't think that just because a 2-hour weigh-in versus a 24 that people don't still pull the same sort of shit successfully. It's just harder. The only difference is when you go to the 24-hour weigh-ins, it almost becomes mandatory because the entire field is doing it. And so if you're competing with 10 people in your class and you're the only one who's not doing it, you're at a disadvantage. Now, as far as these things go, a lot of people are confused about food choices. They're talking about bloating, feeling terrible. They're talking about fat gain. First of all, you need to forget fat gain. A refeed that you're doing to win or be competitive in an athletic event, your mindset on that day cannot be, oh no, am I going to gain half a pound of fat from this? It's not the concerns that someone who is completely physique oriented, who doesn't compete in anything performance related, it's not the same type of refeed. A refeed for those people, if you gained half a pound of fat on a refeed every single week, and you were trying to cut or recomp, you would be screwed. Obviously, for someone who's optimizing body composition, you would be screwed. However, for a competitive event, an athlete doesn't really care if they gain half a pound of fat if it moves them up 2 places higher in their competitive event due to the performance. They optimize body composition. If they're going to, they optimize it in the months before the competition. They don't worry about competition day. And it's the same with a bodybuilder. A bodybuilder who does his carb up and his fat loading and carb loading and whatever he happens to do before he steps on stage doesn't care if he gains a little bit of fat the next day from it, as long as he wins his show. That's what he cares about. So people need to not confuse these 2 things. Now, as far as the quantities of food, people are forgetting, first of all, it depends on people who are using drugs or not, because when drugs go into the equation, I don't think people realize how high the thermic effect of carbs can go, of how much you literally have to overfeed to fully replenish yourself, because the hormones themselves cause a much, much higher thermic response to your food, particularly when large quantities are eaten at once. And they're not factoring in the nutrient partitioning, and I don't mean just glycogen, also the fat of what you can shuttle into muscle tissue beyond its normal capacity as a result of the nutrient partitioning of drugs and things. But you set that aside. Let's talk about even for naturals. All right, most of you have noticed that the math doesn't work. If you've looked at, say, Lyle McDonald's UD 2.0, for example, he has drug-free bodybuilders recomping doing up to 7,000 calorie refeeds. That's going way beyond their carbohydrate stores, and he's explained why. That, first of all, you have the thermic effect and all the other nutrient partitioning. Not all the carbs you eat are making it to your muscle tissue. You're losing straight off the top, assuming even no surplus. You're losing 10% of it immediately due to the immediate heat response. That's gone. That's energy gone. Then you've got to consider that your body's burning some of it for fuel. You're competing with the liver also. Your liver, when you're depleted, is going to suck up a large amount of that glycogen. And at the end of the day, when it's all done, your refeed of 7,000 calories, even if 5,000 of it is carbs, you might only find that 60% of it reaches your muscle tissue. And a lot of what reaches the muscle tissue gets burned off as heat again. And it's the same when we're talking about these massive overfeeds. When you are depleted, particularly depleted of carbohydrates, It is almost biologically impossible to consume enough carbohydrates for those carbs to convert to fat. Your surplus carbs inside of a short window, and a short window meaning up to 36 hours, if you are depleted, you can eat almost unlimited amounts of carbs. And hypothetically, although your body temperature is going to go up, you're going to be sweating, you're going to have all sorts of problems if you do that. Your body is going to burn it off as heat. You will not store it as fat. And if you do, we're talking maybe 20 grams. You're talking, you might be able to store half an ounce of body fat off of something like that if you ate 20,000 calories of carbs. It doesn't work that way. You start converting them a little more as you do it for days and days on end. It's not the short-term overfeeding when you're depleted. It doesn't happen. So what you're doing by way over consuming the carbs, you are producing extra heat energy, but you're also making sure that your muscle glycogen is maximized as much as you can possibly hold. You're just going to spill the rest over as heat. And it might make you feel a little worse. You might have some blood sugar issues, but that's okay because you've got to get your glycogen stores replenished. And by overfeeding the carbs way beyond what you know you need, you know you're hitting it. You're getting intramuscular muscle weight, you're improving performance. Now, the other aspect of it is the fat loading. A lot of people are saying, well, there's fat in there. You guys are confusing body composition with performance. It's a one-time deal. Only an idiot would do this every weekend. You do it for the competitive event. Fat loading gives you more energy, and for endurance-based events, fat loading is amazing. I don't compete in an endurance event, but if I did, fat loading would be amazing. I would be eating more fat than I'm doing. But let's say you eat a massive overfeed of way over 10,000 calories, and 2,000 calories of that is fat. A lot of people are going, well, a lot of that's going to get stored as dietary fat because you've eaten all those carbs. Some of it will. You're absolutely right. But you need to consider that intramuscular triglyceride stores are also depleted when you're depleted. Triglycerides can fill the muscle tissue out further and give you an alternative fuel source to the glucose in the muscle tissue so that you can also hold on to the glycogen longer to keep the muscle fuller longer once you are performing and competing. But it does cause the muscles to enlarge, and a lot of bodybuilders have figured this out over the years that fat loading can also fill them out on stage for the same reason. But this applies to athletes who need bigger muscles for better leverage. It puts more diameter into each muscle with the extra triglycerides in there, and that gives you slightly better leverages. It could make or break you as far as maybe an extra kilo on a lift. So the triglycerides from the fat loading is also important, and you're going to burn some of that fat off. And yeah, at the end, if you eat 2,000 or more calories of fat on a load going in like that on a massive calorie surplus, not all of it's going to get stored as fat. You're going to get intermuscular triglycerides. Some of it will be burned as fuel. And then, yeah, a lot of it will be stored as fat. But if you gain half a pound of fat, who cares? You can diet that off in a few days. So yes, fat loading is also part of the equation. So that's a reason you see athletes who do things like what I'm doing. A lot of people do it. I'm not special. I'm not unique. I'm not presenting anything new with my depletion or my loading that hasn't been done by thousands of other athletes successfully around the world. I'm not presenting anything new to you guys here. So it's not any special secret that I have. This stuff is pretty well widely known in the sports world. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. Oh, Mount Vesuvius.